Welcome back. Last lesson was the regulations and the fines. Today is how compliance gets verified. The audits, the assessments, the pen tests, the mechanisms an organization uses to prove the controls actually work, and the mechanisms an attacker uses to prove the controls do not. Objective 5.5 Audits and Assessments. Picture this: financial services firm. They commission an external pen test in March. The test runs 2 weeks. The report lands. Page 7, finding number 11. A web application has a server-side request forgery vulnerability that lets an authenticated attacker reach internal cloud metadata. Severity rated high. Remediation owner assigned. Target date 60 days. Fast forward 8 months. November. Black Friday weekend. The attackers exploit that exact vulnerability. The exact one. Same finding number, same page. The breach disclosure goes out. Forensics reconstructs the attack path. The pen test report from March is sitting in the same SharePoint folder where the breach response team is now scrambling. The finding had been documented. The fix had not been deployed. The attackers used the audit report as a roadmap. That is the worst version of an audit, when the report is more useful to the attacker than the defender. Today, we talk about how audits and assessments are supposed to work, and how the exam tests the difference. Start with attestation because the term shows up everywhere. Attestation is a formal declaration by an authorized party that controls are in place and operating effectively. An officer signs, CISO, CFO, CEO. The signature creates legal accountability. Sign falsely and you are looking at criminal liability. Attestation is used in SOC reports, SOX filings, regulatory submissions, vendor compliance confirmations. When somebody says, quote, "we have an attestation for that," unquote, they mean somebody senior put their name on a piece of paper that says the control works. Internal audits, performed by your own staff. 5 flavors. Compliance audit verifies the organization is following applicable regulations and internal policies. Operational audit evaluates effectiveness and efficiency of security operations. Financial audit reviews financial controls and the accuracy of financial reporting. Self-assessment, a department or team evaluates its own compliance against a standard. And the audit committee, which is not really an audit but the board-level oversight body that reviews audit results and holds management accountable. Internal audits provide ongoing assurance. They are faster, cheaper, and more frequent than external audits. They lack independence. Internal staff have an interest in finding nothing too embarrassing. The audit committee at the board level provides the independence by overseeing the internal team. Self-assessments are the lightest touch, useful for finding gaps before a formal audit shows up. If you have ever filled out a security self-assessment and felt the pen pulling toward higher ratings on every question, you understand why self-assessment alone is never enough. External audits, performed by independent third parties. 4 flavors. Regulatory examination, government-mandated audit by a regulatory agency. The OCC examines banks. The HHS Office for Civil Rights examines covered entities under AICPA. The SEC examines public companies. Certification audit, to achieve or maintain a certification. ISO 27001. PCI-DSS QSA assessment. Third-party audit. Independent auditors evaluate controls and issue a report. SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3. Assessment. Evaluation without formal certification. NIST. CSF assessment. CIS controls assessment. The exam loves to ask the difference between a certification and an assessment. Certification ends in a certificate you can hand to a customer. An assessment ends in a report. Both are useful. Only one fits in a procurement checkbox. SOC reports deserve their own paragraph because vendor risk teams ask about them constantly. SOC is the System and Organization Controls Report. 3 flavors. SOC 1 covers controls relevant to financial reporting, used by financial auditors and clients whose financials depend on the vendor. If you outsource your payroll, the payroll provider has a SOC 1. SOC 2 covers the trust service criteria: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy. Used by security teams, procurement, enterprise clients. This is the one most security buyers ask for. SOC 3 is a publicly distributable summary of SOC 2. No sensitive details. Marketing friendly. The vendor can post a SOC 3 on their website. Within SOC 2, two types matter. SOC 2 Type 1, point in time. Confirms controls are designed appropriately on a single date. Lower assurance. SOC 2 Type 2 covers a period typically 6 to 12 months. Confirms controls operated effectively across that period. Higher assurance. Type 2 is what serious buyers ask for. Anyone who has sat through a SOC 2 audit cycle knows it is not a one-time event. It is a 6-month plus continuous evidence collection effort. Trust Service Criteria, TSC. Within SOC 2 deserves a moment. Security is required, always in scope. The other four, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy, are optional add-ons depending on the service. A pure infrastructure provider might add availability, a payment processor might add processing integrity, a health data platform might add confidentiality and privacy. The exam may ask which TSC is mandatory. Answer: security. Always. Now penetration testing, the simulation of real attacks to find exploitable vulnerabilities before attackers do. 4 team roles. Red team, offensive, simulates the attacker, tries to compromise systems, bypass defenses, gain access. Blue team, defensive, detects, responds to, and remediates attacks, operates the security controls. Purple team, integrated. Red and blue work together. Red shares findings in real time so blue can improve detection. White team, oversight, manages the exercise, sets rules of engagement, tracks findings, plays referee. The exam writes scenario questions where it gives you the team behavior and asks which color team. Offensive equals red. Defensive equals blue. Working together equals purple. Oversight equals white. Knowledge environments. 3 of them. The exam phrases this as known environment, unknown environment, partially known environment. The older terminology is white box, black box, gray box. White box equals known environment. The tester has full knowledge, network diagrams, source code, credentials, the most thorough testing, finds the deepest vulnerabilities, not realistic of an external attacker. Black box equals unknown environment. The tester has no prior knowledge, the most realistic simulation of an external attacker, may miss issues because the tester runs out of time. Gray box equals partially known environment. The tester has some information, a user account, limited network info, balance of realism and depth. Common for internal assessments where you want to simulate a malicious insider or a compromised low-privilege user. The exam will hand you a scenario. Quote, the tester is provided a network diagram and source code, unquote, and ask which environment. Answer: known environment, also called white box. The terminology is interchangeable on the exam. Penetration testing types, 6 of them. Network, port scanning, service enumeration, exploitation of network services, web application, SQL injection, XSS, CSRF, broken authentication. The OWASP top 10 lives here. Physical, tailgating, lockpicking, batch cloning, dumpster diving. Yes, professional pen testers crawl through trash for a living. Social engineering, phishing calls, pretexting, impersonation, wireless, WPA2 cracking, rogue access points, evil twin testing. Cloud, IAM misconfigurations, storage bucket exposure, metadata endpoint testing. The cloud category has exploded in the last few years because cloud misconfigurations have become the dominant attack class. Public storage buckets, over-permissive IAM roles, exposed metadata services. Cloud pen testing is its own discipline now. Reconnaissance, the information gathering phase before active exploitation. 2 flavors. Passive recon, gathering information without interacting with the target. OSINT from Google, LinkedIn, Shodan. DNS lookups. WHOS, reviewing public code repos. Critical fact, passive recon cannot be detected by the target. No traffic reaches their systems. Active recon, though, directly interacting with the target. Port scanning with Nmap. Service enumeration, banner grabbing, vulnerability scanning. Active recon generates traffic and can be detected by IDS and IPS. The exam will hand you a scenario. Quote, the tester runs a showdown search for the target's exposed services, unquote. That is passive. No traffic to the target. Shodan already scanned the internet versus, quote, the tester runs an nmap SYN scan against the target, unquote. That is active. The SYN packets land on the target's edge. OSINT deserves its own moment. Open source intelligence. Always passive, always legal. The tester reads LinkedIn to map the org chart. The tester reads GitHub for leaked credentials in public repos. The tester reads job postings to figure out what tech stack the target runs. The tester reads the company's own marketing website for product names that hint at internal systems. None of this touches the target's network. All of it is admissible in a pen test report. Anyone who has run an OSINT phase knows the wealth of information sitting in plain view on the public internet. Pivot and lateral movement. After initial compromise, the attacker rarely stops at the first machine. Pivot, using a compromised system as a launching point to attack other systems on the network. Lateral movement, moving across the network from one compromised host to others to expand access. Privilege escalation, gaining higher permissions on a compromised system. Local admin to domain admin. Persistence, maintaining access after initial exploitation. Backdoor account, scheduled task, registry key, Active Directory ticket. Anyone who has read an APT incident report has seen all four. The kill chain rarely starts and ends in the same place. How rules of engagement fit. Before any pen test starts, the rules of engagement are signed. In writing, scope, excluded systems, allowed techniques, testing window, notification requirements, legal authorization, the pen tester's get out of jail free letter. Skip the rules of engagement and the pen tester accidentally takes down a production system at lunchtime and you have a self-inflicted outage. The rules of engagement protect both sides, the tester from legal liability, the customer from production impact. White team writes the rules of engagement, red team executes within them. Blue team is sometimes told and sometimes not, depending on whether you are testing the tools or the people. The unannounced test is more realistic. The announced test catches more findings because nobody is hiding the gaps. One more detail on penetration testing engagements. The pen test report is the deliverable. Findings are categorized by severity: critical, high, medium, low. Each finding includes a description of the vulnerability, the proof of concept showing how the tester exploited it, the affected systems, the recommended remediation, and a CVSS score where applicable. The customer's job is to ingest the report, assign owners, set deadlines, and track remediation through completion. The pen test report is useless unless somebody actually fixes the findings. The opening anecdote, the firm that got breached on a finding documented in their own pen test report, is a real pattern. Track the findings, close them. Otherwise, the report is just an organized inventory of your future incidents. And on red team versus blue team versus penetration test, the terminology overlaps but is distinct. A penetration test is typically a scoped engagement focused on finding exploitable vulnerabilities in a defined target. A red team engagement is broader, simulating a sustained attacker over weeks or months, including social engineering, physical infiltration, and pivoting through cloud and on-prem environments. A red team tests the organization's full detection and response capability. A pen test tests the security of a system, different scopes, different timelines, different deliverables. The exam may not draw the line crisply, but the industry does. One scenario worth memorizing: the unannounced red team engagement. The blue team is not told. The SOC is not told. The red team launches phishing, gets a foothold, pivots laterally, escalates privilege, exfiltrates dummy data, all under the radar. After the engagement, the white team facilitates a debrief. The blue team's detection capability is measured against the red team's activity. Did the SOC see the phishing? Did the EDR catch the lateral movement? Did the DLP trip on the exfiltration? Whatever the blue team missed becomes the next quarter's tooling and training priority. That is the value of an unannounced exercise. It measures the actual operational defense, not the rehearsed one. One more critical exam pattern: assessment versus audit. An assessment is broader and more advisory. It evaluates posture against a framework and produces recommendations. An audit is narrower and more formal. It tests specific controls against specific criteria and produces findings. Assessments help you improve. Audits hold you accountable. The exam may ask which one is appropriate for a given purpose. Quote, evaluate the maturity of the program against NIST CSF, unquote. Assessment. Quote, verify the operating effectiveness of SOX controls for the fiscal year, unquote. Audit. Different verbs, different deliverables, different consequences. And on the audit committee, the exam may write a question framed around board governance. The audit committee is a subcommittee of the board, typically chaired by an independent director with financial or audit expertise. The committee receives reports from both internal audit and external auditors. The committee can hire and fire the external auditor and the head of internal audit. That independence is the point. If the CFO could fire the audit chief who flagged the CFO's controls as deficient, the audit function loses its teeth. The audit committee creates a reporting line outside management influence. That is what board-level oversight actually means in practice. Quick recap as a checklist. 1. Attestation is officer-signed declaration of control effectiveness, used in SOC, SOX, regulatory filings. 2. Internal audits include compliance, operational financial self-assessment, and audit committee oversight. 3. External audits include regulatory examinations, certifications, third-party reports, and assessments. 4. SOC 1 is financial, SOC 2 is security and trust services, SOC 3 is the public summary. 5. SOC 2 Type 1 is point in time. Type 2 covers a period. Type 2 is stronger. 6. Trust service criteria. Security is mandatory. Availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy are optional. 7. Red is offensive, blue is defensive. Purple is integrated, white is oversight. 8. Known environment equals white box, unknown equals black box, partially known equals gray box. 9. Pen testing types: network, web app, physical, social engineering, wireless, cloud. 10. Passive recon does not touch the target. Active recon does. OSINT is always passive. 11. Pivot, lateral movement, privilege escalation, persistence. The 4 phases of post-compromise. 12. Rules of engagement before any test. In writing. No exceptions. 13. Self-assessments are useful for finding gaps before a real audit, not a substitute. 14. Certification ends in a certificate. Assessment ends in a report. That is Objective 5.5. Audits and assessments are how the security program proves itself, to regulators, to customers, to the board. Without them, every security claim is a claim. Next up, Objective 5.6. Security awareness practices. Because all the controls and audits in the world get bypassed by one employee clicking the wrong link on a Tuesday. See you there.